Hello, folks. It's July 8th, 2021. This is the weekly Backdrop developer meeting. We get together every week to discuss the latest priorities for Backdrop CMS, mostly focused on code-related issues. We'll do some quick introductions of those present. My name is Nate Lampton. I am in Oakland, California, and I am a core committer for the Backdrop project. Robert, can we get an update? Or an intro, I'm sorry.
I'm Robert Lang from Altadena, California, bug folder on the internet. And lately I've been working on documentation related issues. Luke.
Hey, folks. I'm Luke McCormick, usually in Northern California, currently coming to you live from hot and muggy Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I do marketing, management, and your occasional bit of programming. Let's go to Greg.
Hi, Greg, usually in Australia, but now stuck in the past year and a half in Greece, taking advantage of the beautiful weather, holiday mode, and lots of catching up to do because I haven't had anything related to Backdrop for a couple of weeks. Let's go to Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim, St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and focused on our third Backdrop Live, which is happening tomorrow. So please come join us, events.backdropcms.org, events.backdropcms.org. That's it. Did we do Joseph yet?
No. Hi, I'm Joseph from Las Vegas, Nevada. I do mostly back-end development stuff. I haven't really been paying attention to the Backdrop community for like a month now, so hoping to get back in and help where I can.
All right, thanks, folks. Updates from the PMC this week. We don't have any updates to report outward. New contributed projects. There are two new contributed modules, Node No Index and Viewport modules that have been published and have releases on backdropcms.org. Let's see, as far as websites, we maintain a whole collection of infrastructure websites related to backdropcms.org, the doc site, the forum, the flagship, and the translation site. I don't think that we have any updates to report on all of the flagship sites. The biggest thing, of course, is the events website. Tim had mentioned that Backdrop Live starts tomorrow. The previous meeting just before this one was we discussed Backdrop Live extensively, so you can check out that recording. The event starts tomorrow. Very exciting, and many of us will be there.
Can I mention one nice thing to report about the docs site, that tugboat builds were broken for months and Peter has them working again, so yay.
That's correct. Yeah, BW Panda went through back in January and set up demo sandboxes to help the development of all of the main Backdrop websites, which is super helpful. That actual cause of that breaking was just that our tugboat account ran out of space. So he created an optimization that makes it so that all of the sandboxes share one set of files instead of all of them duplicating all of the files. And that reduced our usage from over 100% to like 10%. So we have lots of space to grow there and make improvements to our websites now without running out of space. Yeah, big kudos again. Thank you for putting that together, Peter. It really helps a lot setting up development of those sites.
There seemed to be a lot of activity in GitHub related to forums also, but I haven't like followed specifically. Is anything developed there that's interesting, or the docs site or any of those? No.
Oh, you mean like there's new like issues and pull requests regarding like improving them?
I get in my GitHub notifications, I was like swamped with stuff from the internal sites over the last couple of days, beyond just the tugboat pull requests.
Yeah, last week we discussed a bit that Robert has been doing a lot of enhancements to the project listings and the finding of projects and the project pages. That was a lot of issues, but not specifically like the forum. I don't think. There was also a big discussion about using Markdown that we discussed last week. That we haven't totally landed on a solution there, like if we're going to pursue Markdown or not. But we are kind of making progress in the discussion. Anything else that I missed, Robert, that you can think of?
No, yeah, I think those are the big things. I saw a few forum PRs sort of go by. I didn't see a lot of activity on forum specifically.
All right, let's see. Let's go into the progress report. Infrastructure, or just a general ongoing issue that was raised this week in the forum to be added to the agenda was one by Indigo Zella, issue 4753, using GitHub Actions for tests. Indigo Zella did some helpful benchmarking, checking out like, well, first of all, let's rewind a little bit. So we've been using ZenCI for running our unit or our functional tests for a long time, almost in the entirety of the Backdrop project. We're having a lot of issues with the tests failing randomly, or the test results being unavailable when they should be, and just other maintenance issues and control issues. Like we need to upgrade like the PHP versions, and doing that right now, we don't have a way to self-service that. So we're looking at other CI providers to try to run our tests. And so far, other CI providers have not been nearly as fast as ZenCI because they're not optimized specifically for Backdrop. But they have the promise of making it so that we can have more extensive coverage that is on more different versions of PHP. The most obvious candidate, now that GitHub has started providing a CI service directly, is to use GitHub CI service because primarily it's totally free. Secondarily, it's tightly integrated with GitHub, and we're already using GitHub for our tools, so it's an obvious choice. It's one less vendor, one less set of accounts that we need to maintain. So we've been pursuing using GitHub Actions to run our tests, but the current benchmarking that we've done shows that instead of the tests taking about 6 or 7 minutes to run, they take about half an hour to run. So it's pretty bad regression in terms of like overall performance of running the tests. Indigo Zella's suggestion is that we split up the tests into multiple threads and run 1/3, the first third, the second third, and the last third of tests all simultaneously in parallel. And doing that, she has managed to find that we could get PHP 7 runtimes down to about 7 minutes and PHP 5 runtimes down to about 12 minutes. So that appears promising. One caveat to that is that GitHub only allows 20 concurrent threads per project. So this uses 6 threads per pull request instead of just 2, meaning that if we had several pull requests that were filed at the same time or the same one filed repeatedly, we could really only run 3 pull requests at a time worth of tests. So go ahead.
Do they queue up? Like it wouldn't break anything. It would just queue them up, right?
Yep, they just queue up. Yeah.
Okay.
And that probably isn't that bad because it just means that it would be, 6 to 8 minutes that you'd be waiting before your pull request started getting tested, which would probably be just about the same as if there were only one pull request that was, like having your pull request always take 12 minutes or having your pull request wait 6 minutes and then take 6 minutes, so so it could end up being about the same if you're in second place, but if you're first, it would be faster.
Okay. And that would only be if there like 4 or more pull requests were updated at once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or sometimes what happens is one person is working on their pull request several times and it kicks off one round of jobs, a second round of jobs, and then the third round of jobs, because every time they add a commit, it starts another set of jobs.
Okay.
So that's actually the more likely scenario, that people would end up accidentally blocking themselves than like a whole lot of activity making the tests get too slow.
Sorry, just to get this right. So if you push a second change while the first change's job is still running, does it stop the first job and then start a new one, or does it wait? It waits for the first one to finish.
It
Okay.
finishes the first one. Yep. And it might be possible as a pull request owner to stop your job. I haven't actually checked that. I know as an administrator, any administrator can stop the jobs if they see
Yep.
that they're running for no reason.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, basically.
So this is interesting. It's actually an approach that I think did at one point for Travis CI. We split up our things when our job started taking over 45 minutes on Travis CI. So I guess getting GitHub Actions down to this like 6 minutes or 7 minutes for PHP 7 is really good, really. I wasn't thrilled about the separating and running them in parallel, but I don't know. It seems kind of like it could be a good compromise. Does anybody have thoughts on this?
I have a question. How does the splitting happen? Like from a technical standpoint, how do we define the sets of tests?
Well, there's a bunch of different ways to specify what tests you want to run. And one of them is like a file with a list of tests. The other would be using groups and running the groups as separate test executions.
Okay.
Let's see. There's actually a flag when you do the run tests script called split, and you do split equals 1/4 or 1/3 or whatever, and then it so
automatically
you do
decides
1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4, and then it splits them up automatically for you. And maybe I'm looking at Indigo Zella's pull request. I'm not actually sure if split is currently there or if she added it, but apparently that is available to just conveniently split one job into 3 pieces.
So so my point was rather where I was getting at is that there's no overhead for developers. Like we don't have to decide like if we write new tests which group they belong to. It's just that it sort of like GitHub automatically decides and splits it, right?
The GitHub Actions YAML file will have 3 or 6 different jobs in it, and each one of them will pass in a different command to say run this section of tests with this version of PHP.
Okay.
I don't know. It seems kind of promising. We could potentially pursue it and set it up in our repository, kind of as we have like both Tugboat and ZenCI sandboxes right now. And we could have just more tests. One of the funny things is that as long as we're using different vendors, there's really no limit on the number of actions that you can run on a pull request. Although it gets a little bit confusing with all of the different statuses on the pull request. Like, when there's like this would make so there would be 8 little status indicators on a pull request. That could be a little overwhelming, but if this was successful, then we could disable all of ZenCI because we can't easily disable ZenCI right now for sandboxes because we're also using it for tests, and the integration right now is currently using the same hooks for both purposes. So we can't easily turn off one without turning off the other. So if this is successful, that would put forward that possibility.
So I take it that there's a paid version as well, which allows you to run more things and faster, possibly. And is that out of question? Like, is it that expensive that it's sort of like a no?
That's a great question that we might want to explore. As far as I can see, the size of the runner is the same regardless of whether you're paying or not. The open source plan is effectively actually one of the higher tier plans because there's no limit on the amount of minutes that you can use per month. So it's already pretty generous of GitHub that we're not going to run out of processing time per month. It's just a matter of how much concurrency we can have. The concurrency question, I'm sure that the 20 items running concurrently is a prevention mechanism against abuse, right? Because 20 is pretty generous, but it's probably intended to be a cap that's so large that no one would normally run into it. Just so happens that our tests are very expensive and extensive. So it would be worth trying to ask a GitHub community liaison if we could potentially have that limit increased. And I don't know if that's an option.
By the sounds of it, even if we pay, we don't gain that much. We only get more concurrency, as you said. But if that helps, and depending on how much it costs, maybe would have community members sort of like, you know, sponsor that over a period.
Are you saying to pay for a larger plan?
Yes.
I think, well, there are a couple of things we could try. We could try, you know, having the I would say the Backdrop Association, but we don't have necessarily an association. We do have a fair amount of funding that we could trial to see if it's better by paying, not for a long-term purpose, but just as an experiment. Of course, we're also talking about like $20, so we also just anyone could run that experiment individually.
Yep.
But I don't think that even if that were an option, I'm not sure that we would want to pay for it. Like, I think that we should try to pursue the option of like just seeing if we can get it for free.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
Yeah. And I think that we reached out to other vendors. I think Travis CI or Circle, and they also, although they don't have like it's automatically free for open source, they also provided like a here you can have like 20,000 minutes for free per month option, which might also, you know, be something that we should pursue as something to research, because I bet that the runners are probably more efficient or faster than what GitHub offers.
Yeah, but then we risk running out of the allowance, the monthly allowance, and then, you know,
and we have to continue
ourselves.
renewing it. It's not nearly as convenient as the GitHub option, where it's just like for every open repository on GitHub, it's always free. And GitHub also, like GitHub's existence, the existence of GitHub Actions, I think has severely damaged the future viability of all of the other CI platforms, because their entire business was working with CI, working with GitHub to be the CI provider. Now that GitHub has one built in, a lot of people are like us, I imagine, and you know, finding it to be the least friction option. Well, anyway, so I think we should continue the discussion in that issue number 4753. I think it's worth a shot. So maybe we should at least enable it, you know, fashion a pull request to actually enable it, put the actions directly in the core repository and try it out for a little while. Simultaneously, we should also reach out to GitHub and see if there's anything we can do about increasing the maximum concurrency. I don't think that we'll be able to get faster runners because they just don't have them. Like, their specifications are the same for the entire platform. Okay, let's see. Let's go into the project. 119.2 is the next bug fix release that we will be putting out. There's one big item to announce this week, and that is that regression that has been in 119 since its release. the PHP 8 compatibility broke the restore functionality of backup and migrate, issue 5094. The workaround to avoid that problem has been merged into core. And that's a big issue for a lot of people. And so my objective for this next week is to get 119.2 out the door to include that fix. So if you have other features that you would like to get in as soon as possible, the next couple of days is a great window to try to get something in. I did also empty out the RTBC queue. There were lots of great small fixes. Again, more terminology fixes, a couple of PHP notices, a lot of documentation updates as well that have been added in. We're also seeing a lot of new faces in the Backdrop core queue. I added 4 people to the documentation and triage team that were new contributors that were in that RTBC queue list. So that's also really great to see new people coming in and contributing. Let's see. So that's let's see, 119.2 PHP 8 support. We still don't have full test coverage. The meta issue for this is 5076. Doesn't look like there are any updates this week. Backdrop 120 is the next minor version of Backdrop that will include new features. Its release date is September 15th, 2021. And again, we don't have too many items in the 1.20 list for today, but Robert's issue for removing the direct tie-in between node module and layout module has been committed, issue 5067. Very exciting. And that does a lot of things for the world of Contrib. Robert maintains the layout wildcard module that allows wildcard paths, and it should now be able to do some things that it couldn't do quite before, and definitely do it in a way that is much less hacky. Robert, anything you'd like to say about that issue?
No, I'm very happy to have the new hook. We'll make use of it in a new version of Layout Wildcard, and that will both let us do some more fine-grained splitting of the things. Layout Wildcard used to do a bunch of stuff, and we can split it out with individual checkboxes to say, do it this way, but not that way, because one of the features had some surprising side effects to users. And we'll be able to split that out so people can turn that on. And then they have some other ideas about how to deal with contexts in Layout Wildcard as well. And I'll be sort of floating those in the roadmap first before trying to roll out a version that implements it.
Great. Let's see, the other issue that has been moving recently is the exposed file name filter for the media library dialog, issue 3293. Laren is the advocate for that. This one recently, Laren made a good amount of progress solving this problem. It seems as though he has a solution to fix the main issue. Indigo Zella reviewed it this past week and found that there were a couple of things that still weren't quite working. After inserting one image, the second image might not work. So there's still a couple of small issues with the implementation, but there's obvious JavaScript console errors to address. So I think that, the approach still seems as though it's going to work. It's just that we need to work out some edge cases. There's a second approach to solving this problem that has been put forth 6 weeks ago or so by El Muche, that is a completely different approach of using an iframe instead of using a modal form with the view embedded inside of it. Having read through that issue, I think what I would like to see is that we continue to pursue Laren's original approach first, and because it seems as though that approach is a much smaller set of changes, solves the problem, and pursue that initially, and then possibly consider the iframe solution for like a follow-up or a future thing. I know that using iframes could potentially solve a lot of dialogue issues in Backdrop, but it requires a lot of infrastructure kind of set that up properly. So I think the ability to use iframes inside of modals would be a wonderful feature across a lot of Backdrop. And if we pursue an option to do that, then it would be wonderful if we could make a system that could be used in more than just the media library dialogue. I know that we have got like dozens of places where we would want to take confirmation forms and put them into modals instead of taking you to dedicated pages. And it's not clear if using an iframe would be the right way to do that, or using an inline modal would be the right way to do that.
Do we use iframes anywhere else in core yet for anything?
I can't think of one that is obvious. There's some strange things like file uploads sometimes use iframes, but that's through the jQuery forms library. It's not something that we do directly. So there are some uses of it for like working around edge cases and things like that, but we don't use iframes as a presentation tool anywhere that I can think of.
Just if one uses iframes, then you have to pay attention to content security policy in the headers. So that would be a change we'd need to make. Or
yeah, and we already have some control over that. I think Backdrop does set the content control policy already by default to prevent cross embedding across different domains. But I think that as long as we're within the same domain, that we would that we may already be set up for that. But you're right. Yeah, there's different problems, which is why I think that we should pursue not an iframe solution initially, especially because it seems like that approach is closer to being completed and a much smaller set of changes. Those are the only two items that I have that have progress. We have the two other features that are slated for 1.20 so far. The advanced caching that Joseph is advocating for, but I don't think there's been anything recently. Joseph, do you want to say anything about those?
Can I be taken off the advocate for that?
I understand. Yeah, you sure can. And that frees you up if you would like to pursue something else. No pressure.
I'm currently working. I'm actually currently working on a change to menu rebuild. Oh,
well, that's interesting. An area that is highly expensive and pretty slow. So that's interesting. That sounds great. Let's see. And then Jen has an issue exposing field conditions to layout module issue 4728, Jen Lampton. And I don't think that there are any updates on that issue either. So 1.20, we have still this opportunity to introduce new features. Like we have a fair amount of time before the feature freeze on August 31st. So we're definitely still in the mode of soliciting new ideas and options for new features. There are, of course, some features that we have discussed in our prioritization meetings from back at the beginning of the release cycle, things like automatic updates, a reference module, and there was another big one. Tim, can you help me out here with can you recall one of them? Okay.
Could it be the safe drafting or?
Yeah, I was thinking a bigger one even than that. So there are a couple of really big features that people have been requesting since the advent of Backdrop, really. And those features are on the table. At the very least, we have opportunities to move them forward slightly things like automatic updates have a lot of little baby steps that could potentially be
Oh,
taken
telemetry.
to further that.
Telemetry is the other one.
Well, yeah, there's the initiative on that. I think config update or recipes was something we talked about.
That's what it was. Recipes. Yes.
Joseph.
And telemetry?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's already initiative. I don't think I don't know that there's anything new or different about that. Yeah. But yes, it's definitely on our agenda.
Yeah, so all of those items are potentially pursuable. I'm still loosely attempting to move forward automatic updates as I have time. Telemetry, yeah, Gregory, you mentioned might not be something that is targeted for 1.20, but it is an ongoing initiative, which we can touch on real quick. That there haven't been recent updates to telemetry, but the state of things is still pretty similar. That we have the core module, a pull request ready to put in a module named telemetry. There is some work that needs to be done to properly introduce users to it and include it as part of the installation process. But the module itself, we believe, is pretty much ready to be included as, here's the module that provides the functionality and reports information to backdropcms.org. There's a matching pull request to add functionality to project module to start recording the telemetry data. It needs a little bit of work to only allow the data that we expect, only record that information into the database. Right now, it'll record a little bit too much information if you send it other stuff. So yeah, that continues to be an area that like we have we have the path forward. We know what to do there, and it's just a matter of getting the implementation further along. That brings us to the end of the agenda for today. I guess since we do have a couple of minutes, there was another item that has been brought up about just what we should do with these meetings. And we have discussed the format of these meetings a couple of times recently. It's possible that not all of those recordings made it to the YouTube channel. We are trying some changes to the structure of these meetings. Well, let's kind of recap the ideas that we've pursued so far. One of the things that we tried is having these meetings be more of a working session where people bring their ideas and maybe not things that are high priority, but just things that they're stuck on and are looking for help. We did that for one meeting, and it was very productive, but it did not make for very compelling broadcast or a historical record. So I think that idea of it just being a working session where people come together was great, but probably not what we should do during this time. Actually, on Wednesdays, we have a blocked out period of so-called backdrop office hours. Tim, are you the primary organizer of said office hours?
No,
It used to be Jeff
before my time.
Yeah. It used to be Jeff.
Yeah.
It's still on the backdrop internal project calendar as something that could occur. And I think that if we were to renew that, if we had a leader to offer, like, hey, let's get together time that is a bigger window, that would be a better use of that, a better way to pursue that kind of like, hey, let's get together and work out problems.
Yeah.
Luke, is there anything you wanted to say there?
Nope.
Okay, sorry, you just came back on. Okay, so that's one option that we've done. Another thing that we're doing right now that seems as though it has helped a little bit is that we've started posting the agenda the week before the meeting. So at the end of this meeting, we'll post next week's agenda into the forum.backdropcms.org as an event. And then at any time through the entire week, anyone can see next week's agenda. If they have access to the Google Drive, they can actually add an item directly to the agenda. If they do not have access to the Google Drive, they can post a comment to the forum suggesting an additional topic, such as Indigo Zella's topic this week for GitHub Actions was proposed that way. This is definitely an improvement. It has made it so that there's a wider area or a longer period of time for people to propose things, and they know if something is a topic that they're interested in, they can show up to the meeting to discuss that. So I think this is a big win, but it's not quite a comprehensive overhaul of how our meeting is structured. Yeah, do you guys want to bring up any thoughts or any points from the online discussion about changing the meeting format that would be worth recording? No? Okay. Well, and another idea is that we intermittently do the big product or project updates like we did this week. Let's look at 119.2, let's look at 120, let's go through the priority issues, that we might only do that every couple of meetings instead of every single meeting. Again, this is actually something that we did try, I think maybe 3 weeks ago. And one thing that we found has occurred is that sometimes we don't have any topics to discuss that are new. We get 5 people, 6 people show up for the meeting, and people are just there to hear the latest updates, to talk about anything that comes up that they might be interested in, but they're not bringing forth necessarily specific topics every week. And so one week we got together. Our plan was to discuss items that people brought forward, but no items were. And in that situation, well, we just ran through the agenda anyway, because we didn't have any other topics to discuss in the first place. So I think that will continue to kind of be a repeating pattern that we can try as best as possible, where if there's lots of items to discuss that people have put forward, then we'll focus on the new items. And if there are no new items, or we complete all of the new items, then we'll fall back to doing a recap on the newest project updates. So those are the changes that we have been pursuing so far. We have been trying a couple of different things week after week. And where we have settled so far is something that's not very different from before, but just with some minor changes. We prioritize new items, the agenda is posted longer, and we encourage people to post items into the forum. And other than that, the format is kind of the same. We're still open to more changes. There's a GitHub issue in the Backdrop community GitHub group, and that's where that discussion is happening about further changes. So we're still open to more ideas, though, and I think ideas are still coming, and we love trying new things. So if we have new actionable things that we can try, we are still looking to use this time as efficiently as possible and try out different things. But that's it. I think that's all that we have on the agenda for discussion. Do you guys have any other things you guys would like to bring up before we close?
Backdrop Live tomorrow.
Yes, Backdrop Live tomorrow. Events.backdropcms.org is the primary location for all of that. You can get registered via the agenda, make a donation if you so choose. And yeah, it's around the world continuous event with time on and time off. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there, as many people here will be. Okay, well, let's end the broadcast today, and thank you all for being here, and thank